to everybody who is online and for attending this presentation. And following through on just one of the new revenue stream methods that I talk about today would pay for both my new book, New Revenue Sources for Libraries and Nonprofits, and the e-course, which is going to be beginning on October 17th and continue for 4 weeks. I'm honored to offer this overview of the book for the librarians in Alaska, whether or not you're associated with a public library, academia, a school district, whatever. All the methods I talk about today will be applicable to your situations. In addressing the problems of a revenue drought in a competitive field with other nonprofits, basically 2 things spring to mind. Beefing up your metrics with partnerships and great product, of course, and then also stretching the field using technology. I'll go over these and other tactics that you can use to help buffer yourself from the tight revenue that's coming up for actually all of us. 40 plus new revenue sources combines my 20 plus years of library work and 15 years of broadcast business experience. Yes, I've just turned 60, and if it wasn't for the evil Clear Channel Corporation, which is morphed into iHeartRadio, I'd probably still be in broadcasting, but they bought my station in Cleveland, and I decided I didn't want to move anymore. I transitioned at 40 to libraries, and really haven't looked back except for just recently when I decided that I should share some of the revenue-producing tactics and tools that broadcasters use with libraries and nonprofits. Thanks to the internet now, almost any nonprofit or library could become a little mini broadcasting station, a telecommunications center. And so that's the reasoning behind the book. On this topic, I've conducted 3 webinars and written an online article in the Public Libraries Briefcase, a publication for the Business Reference and Support Services Division of RUSA. And if anyone today has a colleague who's a business librarian or a business reference librarian or a business outreach librarian, have them consider applying for the Morningstar Public Librarian Support Award for a paid trip to Annual next year in Chicago. Just Google Brass Morningstar for details. And yes, full disclosure, I am chairman of the nominating committee. Today I'll introduce the book for about 15 or 20 minutes and then talk about 5 methods that you can use to start using in just a couple of months. Potentially through these methods you can make hundreds if not thousands of dollars by the end of the year. I know you're laughing, but just wait. Part 1 of the book talks about 9 foundational chapters that provide the setting and establish the needed framework for any enterprise. Part 2 of the book has 42 mini chapters on the revenue stream methods, pretty much using method-specific foundational chapter concepts on establishing value for that method, what kind of contract to use, those different types of things. In the appendix of the book is a money matrix that you can use for brainstorming, which methods you might want to use, matching methods to concepts in a table that can be a catalyst for conversations among you and your stakeholders. Some of you may already have the book, and I'll be referring at various points to specific pages that you could jot down and go check out after this. Chapter 1 is context. It lays it out, the tough economic environment libraries and nonprofits have to provide service under. There are typical problems and typical reactions. Do they look familiar? My solution is make money, not excuses. How? Well, there's a positive role model we can follow to avoid a downward spiral, to help us survive and thrive. And that's discussed in Chapter 2 about public broadcasting. Millennials may find this hard to believe, but the government started the public broadcasting industry in the 60s, then pulled the rug out from under them in the 1970s. During a recession, of course. NPR almost went bankrupt in the 1980s, so the stations had to learn to be self-supportive. When national funding dried up, stations had to move to state and local funding. How did public broadcasting address the challenges to raising money through commercialism? They were strict about no proximity at the national level. For instance, a clinic couldn't sponsor a health program. At the local level, they're a little more liberal. There's currently a good set of policy guidelines for accepting either acknowledgments, which are simple phrases, or advertisements, which has more emphatic sales messages. They do both. Public broadcasting does both, and there are positive and negative consequences too complex for our limited amount of time here to get into. You should get the book. I interviewed the Chief Development Officer of IdeaStream, the name for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting here in Cleveland, and she's really proud of the fact that right now they're only accepting about 10% of their funding through the federal government. Many development managers, like this woman, had graduated from the Indiana School of Philanthropy. In basic fundraising, they teach about moves management, moving through a sales cycle. It's all about relationship building. Unless you're legally constricted from only seeking money, outside money, through requests for proposals, you should practice this method here in moves management. Move 1 is the discovery process. Staff brainstorms a list of the top 25 businesses that could possibly be sponsors. After that, targeting who within those companies they should approach, and do they already have a connection to that person. Talk to them, share ideas, find out about what are their marketing plans. Move number 2, cultivation. Make a second appointment. Say basically, can we come back and talk about what it is you want to do, how we can help? Number 3 is solicitation. Thanks for the conversation. You showed interest in doing X and Y. We can do X, Y, and Z. In other words, it's the pitch. Stewardship deals with acknowledging their support, delivering on what you promised professionally, inviting back to see their results. Whatever way you can, keep connected. Try to leverage a sponsorship with other events to engage the client. Come on in, maybe for the introduction of a program, a ribbon cutting, a personal tour. Broadcasters give clients concert tickets. Librarians wouldn't be able to do that. They might be able to wipe out their kids' fines. Nah, just kidding. But whatever you can do, you might be able to give them a heads up. If you know the sponsor well enough, find out who their favorite author is and give them a heads up when their new book's coming out. Things like that will help keep you connected. As far as the broadcasting model, in the broadcasting business model, revenue is earned through advertising. The value of those ads are based on considerations like the length of the ads and the number of exposures to the audience, the time of day, the popularity of the placement area, product categories. It's a great technique, and it's discussed next throughout the industry using what I'm going to do is show you an exercise using product categories to target and separate advertisers if you need to do that. Recognize that guy? It's Herb Tarlick from WKRP in Cincinnati. Page 27 in the book has an exercise using both major classification schemes, the Dewey Decimal Scheme and the Library of Congress. In the chart, the asterisk mark categories in the top 10 of ad spending. Time prevents explaining the exercise now, but I did forward it on to the one of the people who connected me with the state library here. And through your listserv, you should get an exercise that has this table here, part of which is on your screen, and also ways that I lead you through going after different types of advertisers who are coordinated with the product category. What I would do is basically try and get the book, of course. It should be in everybody's reference area. You know what happens to books if they're circulating. People like her will go and never borrow them and never bring them back. But for efficient discovery prospecting, you can use things like Reference USA or A to Z directories or other print directories, or you might be able to discover products through SIC or NAICS codes. And like I said, I hate teasing people about buying the book all the time. When you get the exercise, it'll have a listing of the Dewey Decimal and the Library of Congress classification numbers. It'll have the top product advertiser categories. And then underneath each are examples like BMW of Anchorage and their SIC and NAICS codes. There'll be about a dozen of them there, and hopefully you'll be able to use that exercise to get a handle on what I'm talking about as far as using the product categories with local advertisers, and depending on what kind of database you have, being able not only to look at those advertisers, but their competitors as well. It's a great exercise in trying to develop things. I'm also sending along a location exercise, which will be described in a little bit here. Establishing value. Broadcasters use Nielsen's, Arbitrons, and other measurement statistics. We have our own and have to establish others. Automated traffic counters can be very valuable here. Most libraries have them at entrances, and new technology is developing all the time to have closer assessments. Even without hard traffic stats, one can make observational studies over time or base estimates on checkouts and program attendance. I don't know how many of the organizations out of the 3 are actually doing traffic counts, but you may want to do them. And this particular chapter, Chapter 4, talks about the metrics business people look for and respect when considering to invest their dollars. And too often I've seen desperation overrule reason when it comes to setting prices for things. Beware the rookie mistake of undervaluing what it is that your organization has to offer. And one of the things, I don't know if this will come across right away, the location exercise. What I'm recommending people do is pick out 3 different locations within their facility, high traffic areas, and then either using traffic counters or trying to do observational studies, get a handle on how many people are going through, how busy it is. So you can approach business people saying, with objective measures, how many people might be able to see your advertisements, or even just an acknowledgement that they've sponsored a certain collection area or materials within your building. Real pros look at this output measure, and you folks should too. CPM is the cost of exposing 1,000 audience members to a message, dividing the total cost by audience in thousands. I break this down in the next slide. So for instance, if you wanted to charge $500 for a monthly sign cost and you have 30,000 people passing by, you would take 500 divided by 30. That would give you the 16 CPM. And I'm just looking here to see if I have the visuals on this for the product prospecting exercise. And I don't, but you will get a copy of this, once again, in one of the exercises that I'm sending along to you. But what you want to do is try and calculate the CPM, and from that you can figure out what your CPM is, and then snoop around and find out what other people are offering. Doing the 2-part media audit exercise will help you do this. The media audit exercise will include with it rate charts from iHeartRadio and the Alaskan Dispatch News, I believe that's what they call it, ADN, that show an example of how they calculate and how they use CPM. The Alaskan Dispatch News, they have for a top quadrant of their digital website, they charge a 19 CPM for that. iHeartRadio charges a 20. You want to be able to look at what you possibly have and then be able to try and see if that's competitive or not. Finding out what the local CPMs are will take investigative work. They're not necessarily common knowledge, sometimes even protected until the people smell business. But call for their advertising rates. You might have an in-house library already of these anyway, so if you've been purchasing local media. Try to gather rates for print, broadcast, electronic media, plus any receipt advertising. I use that method number 32 in my book, or direct mail companies for your area. These won't be the last word on setting value, rest assured. I understand how you might be a little concerned if you have a low audience, but they help. The intrinsic good your organization, your library does for the community can be emphasized too. To paraphrase from a TV show that was debuted last year, it was called Billions, they actually had an episode called Naming Rights. One of the lines for that was, the sale of advertising rights or naming rights doesn't just signify a building, or a business just doesn't signify a business, but it dignifies a business. So don't think you have to totally depend on numbers. You can also embellish your sales pitch with basically the good that you do with the community. Then also there's another line that broadcasters have used for years, especially where I work with an alternative radio station. What you're offering an advertiser sometimes is a smaller target, but a bigger bullseye. It's impossible to miss. If they're looking for women, mothers of children, doing things around your children's programming, your section, it's a huge target for them and makes it very efficient for them to reach their target audience using your books. And once again, here's an example of CPM used by the Alaskan Dispatch in their 2016 media kit. For the top corner placement, their CPM is $19. Compiling media kits like this, once again, will give you a sense of what's fair and what's competitive in your market. You may want to set the correct price for whatever advertisement or sponsorships that you're selling. You want to do this. This will prevent your product from never being sold or being stolen. So you don't want to ask too much. You don't want to ask too little. Here's the one from iHeartRadio. They don't explicitly use the phrase CPM, but you can do the math. For the setup, basically the original, the startup thing over on the left-hand side, the cost is $5,000 divided by 250, the 250,000 impressions that they'll give you. The number of impressions in thousands equals 20. So they offer a 20 CPM, cost per thousand. And if you look at the fine print, hopefully you can read that through the slide. They're also offering extra value items such as endorsements and more scripts as you move farther up their sponsorship ladder. A concept, again, covered in the e-course and covered in the book. Chapters 5 and 6 cover legalities and contracts. In the picture above, yours truly stands next to some memorial benches overlooking a Cleveland Metro Parks river, almost crushed by unexpected ice flows during the winter of polar vortexes we had a few years back. Oftentimes, Cleveland doesn't get that cold. It's probably just, you're laughing at probably the temperatures that we have. But regardless, what it comes down to is there's a question there. Who would pay for those memorial benches if they were crushed by all that ice? Nobody forecast that. The book does have dozens of case studies addressing situations like this. Santa Maria's case study had 3 family-funded benches in front of their library that eventually attracted homeless people who used them to sleep on during the day. Eventually, the library swapped them with chairs, but they went through a lot of gyrations on how to handle the tenth of families' wishes. Long story short, for the webinar, beware of using in perpetuity or not have any maintenance clauses when you set up naming rights or sponsorships. Santa Maria is a great cautionary tale with a happy ending. You should read about it. Yes, it's in the book, but it's also in the public library's briefcase article from 2014 that's available to anybody. You don't have to be a member of ALA. Just once again, Google public library's briefcase and you'll be able to find the article in 2014 about naming rights. This and many other case studies, if you can't get the book, give you a good sense of what it is the book's concepts talk about. To develop a good contract, the contract's a formal aspect of the relationship. Despite the personal, friendly nature of a relationship you may have with the prospect, a professional contract proves you're interested in proper stewardship of the library and respectful of their businesses. Please do not be contract phobic. These 5 points are what the library can control from a procedural point of view, and they're listed also in the book on page 48. Each revenue contract should contain these elements. Logistics confirmation. Who's producing what and when will it be delivered? Copy confirmation. What exactly is being said? A screening process should be specified, checking not only for grammatical errors, but content that may cross a line from acknowledgments into advertising. There's legal and tax consequences for having acknowledgments or advertisements, so you want to be clear on those. Billing process. Document the terms and deadlines for down payments if you're accepting them, payment method, auditing methods, and billing terms. Deposits procedure. This should be outlined, even though I understand some jurisdictions, public entities may have no say in the process. However, the client should be made aware of what is or is not required of them. Implementation process, a timeline for all of the above, summarizing all the rules and the due dates involved in making sure that a final product is operational. Chapter 7 deals with promotion, sales promotion. Deals with getting the word out and not by using RFPs, requests for proposals, unless mandated by your policies or your local laws. Page 62 talks about the use of infographics and their importance in relaying information, using examples from National Public Radio. One picture is worth 1,000 words, and your annual reports could be a good start towards making an engaging promotional packet. Look at all the information that's chock full of information just right in there in that little infographic. This is what you want to do to develop your sales promotional package. Part of your sales promotional package also needs to use features and benefits. Using features, advantages, and benefits is not a complicated process. It's an age-old formula. This graphic and an exercise to practice identifying features and converting them into benefits is on page 59. It should be very subtle. It can be used for any target audience. It can be used for your board to buy off on your new idea about trying to sell sponsorships, businesses to fund it, and patrons to participate. When you encounter objections to whatever it is you're doing to create revenue, this is a formula to follow. It helps frame things in a user-centered way. So basically, features are the characteristics of something. It might be the supply vending machines. Advantages, the patron convenience. The benefits, it gives support as needed. Helps prevent people from coming up to the desk asking for things that you don't have in stock. Chapter 8 talks about the impact of technology. Crowdfunding is part of that. These second graders used it much better than selling lemonade. They started with a lemonade stand, then created an account on Indiegogo to reopen a closed school library in Sausalito, California, with help from their moms, of course. The Crowdfunding Bible is a great book, and it's got very solid advice. In looking at this library's example, the Hudson's Libraries, there are 6 key elements for setting up a good crowdfunding campaign that you can use, and basically they're outlined in yellow here. Number 1, what product are you going to use? They use Indiegogo. It's a well-established platform, a well-known, safe resource. In the book, I have a comparison exercise that talks about various characteristics of crowdfunding platforms, and there's also some suggestions on how you can do that. Basically, you go through a checklist like you would with a car. Look for the features you want, and then pick an appropriate platform. Number 2, the pitch. Theirs was the importance of early literacy needing a comfort zone for storytelling. It's emotionally appealing as well as valuable to the community. Number 3 was video or graphics. This was a great opening shot. It's impossible not to miss. Number 4 were incentives. Over on the right there, they had different types of incentives for the $10 and $25 range contributions. Plus, they had other ones that just fell off the page. 5 was goal. They were looking for $5,000. They ended up getting $5,690. Not too far out of range for the community. And the campaign, number 6, was basically, it was a specific short-term time frame. They had frequent updates. It was social media friendly. They kept people posted in Twitter and in Facebook as far as how things go. And they also had good timing with their summer reading program. They exceeded the goal, which was nice. Chapter 9 deals with grants and partnerships. I know that grants sometimes turn on whether you can sustain an effort after their grant money goes away. Now, you might want to ask yourselves out there in the audience, in your last winning grant, did you work with a business partner, such as a local pharmacy, hardware dealer, grocery store? This particular chapter discusses ways to do that without bleeding your local partners. How do you do that? You get their national suppliers with deeper pockets to help. For example, a local hardware store may be a local distributor for Cub Cadet snowblowers, a national brand. In the cultivation stage of move management, try to discover if they can approach Cub Cadet, or if your sponsor would approach Cub Cadet about helping to co-sponsor an event or a sponsorship. This concept is called co-op advertising. You should Google define co-op advertising after the webinar, or refer to my tip section on page 82 of the book. Millions of dollars go unused by local dealers because sometimes they're a big dog in the marketplace. They don't need to advertise, which makes total sense, business sense. But if you could get them to be a partner with you in whatever it is, sponsorship or in an ongoing grant program, then ask them to make a little bit of effort and tap their national sponsors. You can walk through their business and see who could be a national sponsor. You can exponentially increase your contributions. Once again, it's called co-op money. And in addressing the problems of a revenue drought in a competitive field where everybody else is trying to scramble for money, what you might want to do is beef up your metrics with partnerships like this. Beefing up the metrics is similar in concept to what the broadcasting industry has done in dealing with radio clusters. Now you could do it with your business and combined with the local, your library combined with the local business, or with other nonprofits. The difference between all these different groups participating is you're not dismantling the staffs like the radio clusters did, but rather what you're doing is you're developing a nonprofit maybe roundtable, which we had in my Lakewood job, where we coordinated with other agencies to communicate interests, key dates and things like that. So what you want to do is, and I'll try and send something out a little bit more about the co-op advertising too, because it's a legitimate technique, and it's something if you're really scrambling for money between you and your local partners, you could easily win. There is a lot of money out there that's just unfortunately not being taken care of, not being taken advantage of. I mentioned before the money matrix in the book is one of the appendixes. The appendix has this, it's a great brainstorming tool, and you can use it to put the 40+ revenue generating methods immediately into perspective with the foundational chapters. And what I'll do also, it's not part of the 3 exercises I sent, but I'll try and copy some of this and some information material about that, about the methods I'm about to go over with, so that you can draw on those and not necessarily have to buy the book right away. But basically, each mini chapter that is covered has their own little line in the money matrix. For instance, today we're going to be talking about 50/50 raffles and gift shops, the source of money from those particular things. I'm choosing the 5 methods today. All of them deal with public money, not taking any time in dealing with a business or a foundation. Those are good, and those are a great source of dollars, but if you want to raise money quickly, going directly into the public vein is the way to go. And then they talk about various other things you have to be concerned with too. How much money it would involve, public relations efforts, with the board involvement, whether or not it's taxable or not, and what types of contracts they have, those different types of things. It's a good organizational tool, and I'd encourage you to take a look at it and try to use it in your brainstorming. Okay. For 5 quick ways, I'm running a little bit behind. I think we've got about 45 minutes left to go, so that should be more than enough. 5 ways to quickly earn development campaign revenue by the end of 2016 would include, I have the method numbers here with the different types of money I think you could raise with it. 50/50 raffles, you could start that this month. Get $400 by year end if you only made $50 a week. Method number 20, online gift shops. Once again, if you started out for an 8-week period at $50 a week, you can make $400 by year end. Method 29, naming rights, own a day. This might take a little bit of a while to schedule things because it deals with using calendars and other things that are pre-printed. Still, you might get the ball rolling and be able to produce a little bit by the year end. And methods number 5 and 31, Once again, it depends on how quickly, how nimble you are as far as taking advantage of this. I'm going to show you today a great publication calculator and method to fast track books. I would suggest a holiday recipe book if you want to make a quick revenue hit. Use the local people that you work with, compile a book about recipes. That particular method will show you a record, once again, a publication calculator that you should be able to figure out exactly how much you'd be able to make on that. And then the last but not least would be crowdfunding. After you earn money from these other methods, think about using crowdfunding. You may have been doing development campaign work throughout 2016. You can utilize what's called the second ask and year-end write-off tactics. You put the incentives based on a gift ladder like the other library did. For a $25 donation, you get a hat for $35, a cup for $25, those different types of things. The second ask deals with, hey, thank you very much for supporting us this year in our summer reading program. We're looking forward to doing something in 2017 when we have your help again. Depending on the business, they may be able to, they may say, yeah, that worked out pretty good. We still have some money left over. Let's try and make another contribution. Okay, so for the 50-50 Raffles, as I said, basically, for the 50-50 Raffles, I have all the mini chapters have things called first step section. And as far as first steps go for 50-50 Raffles, before anything, check the regulatory guidelines governing your organization at every government level. Laws may not apply to your type of organization, but there could be scenarios where a law applies to your funder, like a school district. You wouldn't want to jeopardize that. You want to set up an easily auditable procedure for collecting and dispersing funds. Determine the timing of drawings. You want to do it once a week, once a month. What would be sufficient to build and keep awareness, get people to participate, and still have a good sized payout? What announcement method will you use for both encouraging people to play and announcing winners? Can you say who it was who won? Give them the option to remain private, or are you legally obligated to announce the winner's name? You can use the goal of building up the library's development fund or whatever cause you think best to encourage people to play. Try for something tangible that a decline in traditional revenues has hampered. So whether or not it's cutting back on your hours or maybe not investing as much in a parenting collection, you could use 50-50 Raffle to, once again, build up your funds for that particular goal. Use your friends to build up the pot or help in sales. Have great displays around where the ticket sales are and tell the story about what the library does for the community right around there. How would the moves management work for this area? Well, remember the 4-stage moves management model. For discovery, you'd want to target your friends group, existing partners, patrons, even non-patrons through the use of flyers and grocery stores and coffee shops and things like this. Tap into the friends groups for cultivation and ask for their input into the development and design of the methods used to achieve maximum exposure and usage of this particular technique. For the solicitation, basically, your proposal. Do you use a 50-50 board or time-based ticket sale? Include incentives that might increase use and purchases, maybe. Perhaps non-monetary library promotional merchandise for second-place winners. And then for stewardship, you want to have periodic status checks, inspect inventory churn, how quickly are taken. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. Looks like we're good to go.
Oh, great. Okay. Online gift shop. I think that I just noticed the light disappeared after the 50-50 Raffle, so perhaps everything has gone through okay with that, and hopefully this recording is going on just as smoothly as ever. Maybe a little bump in the information superhighway, but we'll get through that. We've got about maybe about 10 more screens to go. Anyway, the online gift shop is a great idea as far as having different types of library branded gifts sent out. And what I like about this, I would use Cafe Press to cost out your own products. I learned about them from researching Stephen King gifts. And if he's down with them, why not us? The center graphic here shows where the t-shirt is, the design, basically their formula. They have a wholesale price. You set a retail price. Don't be greedy just because you're not putting money into it. Set a goal and price your items accordingly. Two options on how you split the revenue are both generous to you. Option A is basically they take $10 off your royalties max. Make $50 in profit, they charge you $10. Make $500 in profit, they charge you $10. Option B pays a flat service fee below that on a sliding scale. I would try for that for a few months. Either way, no upfront costs except for your time. You're not risking public money on a risky venture. It's really a win-win for everybody. I would try and use that method and get together with your stakeholders, see what's appropriate before the holiday giving season, and then promote it. Check with Cafe Press as far as setting it up and establishing the proper links for your own websites, and all of a sudden, voila, you've got an online gift shop, no cost to you except for your time. Own a day, naming rights. In this method, basically, this is an award-winning method, having a person's name celebrated all over your organization's promotional channels. In this method, someone's name is available on whatever channels in an organization's promotions that they have, like the website, calendar of events, all the receipts for that day, if you can adjust those. They're also featured on electronic media like email newsletters, the library Facebook page, and the Twitter account. In a commercial example, the Cleveland Indians scoreboard has, birthday announcements. They have a limit of 15 names per game. They charge $50 a name to commemorate somebody's birthday, retirement, almost everything except wedding proposals. And they also do pictures and things of that nature. This was taken in September 9th, 2016. Someone's birthday is in gold. You can see it there on September 9th. The yellow blocks are taken. I don't think the 24th is the author, Anne Rice, but somebody who wants to honor somebody else. Anyway, the people for this paid $100 for each one of those yellow squares. This month they're making $1,200 from this particular technique. The James B. Brown Library in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, won the Gale Cengage Learning Financial Development Award for 2015 for this method. They have a great automated form for this. If you go to their website for the James B. Brown Library in Williamsport, you'll be able to see exactly what they're asking. The library is named after a local philanthropist, not the godfather of soul, James Brown. They get 225,000 visitors a year and circulate 500,000 items annually. And as I said, they draw $100 per name, and you just have to look at your own metrics and see, is our audience big enough to support that? Maybe you'd want to charge $50 or start off with $25. You may have different types of rates for businesses, but you can imagine the power of this as far as having the bonding for a child or something like this. You want to spend the money at Chuck E. Cheese, or do you want to spend some money honoring them at the library and reinforcing that library bond? Speaking of radio ads and setting CTM and things of that nature, no matter if the sales are to the public or business, the flow below is a useful procedural guideline. This is what you'd have to set up in order to make this method work. Basically, you want to have a good system to be able to track inventory availabilities. You wouldn't want to have people share the same day. You want to have a clean-cut contract and confirmation policy saying, okay, do you know about this? Either a credit check or some way to be able to accept payments immediately, and then a copy check. Find out whether or not, and once again, this is something that you guys would want to decide on whether or not what kind of messages you want to have for pictures. For own-a-day first steps, this method would have, I think, a low startup cost. The following questions should be answered before putting this method into place. And these organizational questions are also good for a lot of the different methods that I use throughout the book. Who's involved? Should you have separate rates for the public and businesses? Will there be certain categories of businesses not allowed to participate? What are you going to do? The name or a brand prominence? Are you going to have text only, or can images also be used? When? A specific date is being used, so you will need a good calendar system to handle reservations as well as cancellations. You'll need a due date for deposits or payments as well as pictures or images supposed to be used. If you do use patron pictures, have a backup image to superimpose their name over just in case they're shy or they can't get the proper image to you in time. Where will this be? This decision helps set the value in terms of the CPM if you're going to be charging businesses or trying to determine if you're going to talk about CPMs to people. I doubt you'd want to do that. But determine every location where the name is going to be displayed, then the average impression is going to receive. How? Determine your procedures for copy. How far out, and this is important, does your copy or your name need to be placed on your website, your lobby sign, newsletter calendar, due date receipts, or any other place you're going to be putting the name? And then, once again, are you going to allow advertising or simple acknowledgement language for businesses? Will you have suggested copy or word limits so you don't have to reinvent the wheel for memorials, recognition, celebrations, or business branding? Publishing, our fourth method. This is method number 41, page 178. And basically, self-publishing has been around for a while, and libraries are uniquely gifted with skilled creative researchers and writers able to take advantage of this. And it's one of the things that I can see both nonprofits and libraries doing more of in 2017, self-publishing. A longtime library vendor, Ingram, has created a new program located at ingramspark.com. For a relatively low cost, $50 for a setup fee, libraries can publish well-researched books and ebooks on a wide variety of local topics. On Ingram Spark is a free publishing calculator that can be used to determine the revenue that's going to be generated prior to dedicating resources to create them. This could also be used in offering a baseline when discussing costs with other publishers. That's the second one down there, publisher compensation calculator. First steps for publishing. Once again, use your research and organizational skills to quickly create a valuable product. First steps are geared towards who. Who is the target audience for this publication? What? What's your topic or theme? Local architecture, recipes? Personally, time of year we're in right now, I'd suggest a holiday cookbook. Compile recipes, photos, bios, anecdotal information, and based on that, when are you going to do it? Are you timing your release for the holiday season, seasonal sales? That would be good. You could look ahead. Maybe you want to do something for the summertime. Think about when you want to do it. Will it be an annual publication? Will it be a juried collection of stories, maybe from your local authors group? Will it have a reward to it, almost like an art show? You do a variety of different things with this technique. How? Publication logistics should include decisions on trim size, the use of color and graphics, binding and page count. All these questions and more are on the Ingram Spark calculator. So you can figure out and ask yourself all these questions on how you want this book to look, and then from there, proceed accordingly. And then why? Are you spotlighting community history? Are your goals going to be educational or social? Okay, once again, for crowdfunding. This is after you've maybe gathered some money together and you're able to buy incentives, a decent amount of incentives. If you've, once again, practiced good stewardship and have a strong alliance with past funders, a second ask is easy on this. And essentially, I don't want to belabor it too much. I know there's a lot of different types of ways that you could use this. What you want to do is pick something for crowdfunding that's going to be very visible and tangible to your community. Not just a development campaign, but something like a summer reading program. In this example, an early literacy story time nook. something that would be nice to have but not currently in your budget, or something that you used to have and is not currently in your budget. So what you'd want to do is really discuss what your particular themes are going to be, what your pitch is going to be, and then develop video or graphics. I saw a great crowdfunding campaign for a library that was destroyed by a fire in California through one of the wildfires, and they had a very gripping before and after shot instead of a video. Before showing a nice little library, and then the skeleton of what it looked like after the fire had swept through. Very powerful. Once again, they achieved their goals as well. Wasn't too hard to set up. And the money for these, depending on your pitch and the speed that you could have for it, could be earned. And sorry for the dropout, folks. I guess it's something that you're probably maybe accustomed to. Maybe there's some storms happening up around your area. But anyway, as far as using technology, using the internet, you can be your own telecommunications center, and using some of the great programming that you have, you should strive to capture that. You can, if you do have podcasts, you can, once again, use those for an advertising vehicle. The book has a bunch of different case studies and examples of how other libraries and nonprofits have used technology in order to stretch the field to reach out to those people who can't always get into the library. Again, there's a 4-week workshop starting in October through that link. My email address is ed.rossman@shakerlibrary.org. I've got a Facebook page, facebook.com/rev4live. If you like it, share it. And what I do on that is give current examples that obviously are current methods of things, using all the different types of methods that we're using and how libraries are currently putting those into play. Today I talked about how bookmobiles have been branded, kind of like a NASCAR, with a local college as far as their sponsorship. The local college is putting $80,000 a year into it to have their brand on the bookmobile as it travels around and services their community. You can buy the book by going to the alastore.ala.org and use the promo code NRSL16 for $5 off. And as far as good things coming to an end, I guess we're really close to the hour here. I am not used to doing this when there's not that much interaction or a chat window, so I don't know if there are any questions. I really haven't been able to hear any, but I'd be glad to entertain any right now if there's some. I'm going to get back to the visual mode. So if anyone is out there and wants to ask a question, feel free. People watching by. If not, thank you very much for attending, and look for those exercises and those extra things about the money matrix coming to you soon. From Cleveland, Ohio, thank you very much for attending. Have a great week.